Hey, hello and welcome. This is Summer Piha from the Conscious.Classroom Certification Model. Check us out at cccmodel.com. You're listening to Let's Talk ECE, the place on the internet where we talk tips, tricks, and perspective shifts related to all things early childhood. Join Summer and Rachel in their mindset shifting discussions on common topics in the early childhood world. You'll hear real stories from their time working together as an owner-director pair and how they learn to see things from each other's perspectives over the years, so you can learn how to openly discuss these viewpoints and find common ground within your leadership team. Hey everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk ECE. My name is Summer Piha and I'm here with
Rachel Rouse.
And today we're going to talk about onboarding.
Perfect. How many times have we all heard, put it in your onboarding, right? My guess is literally every time that you talk to someone about how to improve your program, that is the answer. Put it in your onboarding. And being super transparent and honest, talking with Summer and I were not an exception to that, because there is so much benefit to putting a lot of things in our onboarding process. But there are a couple things that we have to discuss in regards to that to make it effective. And I'm really, really excited to talk about this today, because it was actually just a couple weeks ago, I got a call and we were on the phone with one of our clients, and she just said, hey, everyone says put it in onboarding, but at what point is it just too much? And I was so inspired by that and the conversation that we had that I wanted to address it today.
I'm so glad you brought this topic up, because it is really important. Having a lot of information in your onboarding, absolutely. But people have to work at some point, right? Like their whole job isn't just onboarding. And so let's talk about how to have a great onboarding and move things along so they can get to work. So first things first, one of the things we have to talk about is, what does your program's onboarding look like? And you guys, we can get super tactical and talk about what it is. Like, is it on paper? Do you have videos? Do you have some sort of onboarding technology platform? But when it really comes down to it, it's the pace of the trainings that's really important. Okay, so usually if we're at a place of hiring, we need somebody in ratio like yesterday.
Yeah.
And so we try to cram everything that person's supposed to know in a day or two so they can get in the classroom and get to work. And I think it's something to think about, and it's really overwhelming to try to get all this information to a new staff member and get them at a place where they can actually go into the classroom and work. Yeah. If we're cramming a whole job into 2 days, the staff member absolutely will not retain it. And realistically, it'll be a waste of everyone's time. It'll just lead to like massive frustration, because you're going to end up having to say things again and again. And so that sounds super harsh.
Well, and how many times as leaders are we not like, you learned this because we talked to you about it? And they're like, 7.5 hours into our onboarding.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Or they just ghost, right? Because they're like, whoa, this is a lot. I'm just going to go to lunch and never come back. Right? That happens. And we have to be realistic about it. So we want our team members to actually engage and retain information. Yeah. And I will tell you, having a 30, 60, 90-day plan is really, really important. And I know a 30, 60, 90-day plan sounds intense, but Rachel, can you walk us through what that looks like?
For sure.
Like, let's break it down.
100%. Right? So it does sound super intense, but it doesn't have to be. First, before I even start talking about the logistics of that, I want to challenge everyone to really change their mindset around onboarding. In the early childhood world, someone being around for 90 days can make it be like, you've been here since the beginning. Like, it is that intense of a job and you're spending a lot of time with them. But we have to remember that 90 days is not very long.
Right.
Acknowledging that 90 days is brand new is going to be important. So having that 90-day onboarding process does not mean that they aren't working in the classroom for 90 days, but it means they're going to continually and slowly get new information to review during that time that's going to help them be successful and be independent in their job.
Okay, before we jump into how, I want everyone who's listening to say out loud, it's okay, say it out loud. Even if you're at Starbucks, it doesn't matter, just say it out loud. I want you to say, I commit. I commit to this mindset shift around onboarding. Say it, I commit. I commit. Okay,
I love that.
Jump into the how now, Rachel.
Perfect. Let's do it. So let's just baseline start with those first 30 days. Every time I go through a 30-day chunk of this, the 30 days, up to the 60 days, to the 90 days, what we're talking about and what we have to focus on are the goals and objectives. For the first 30 days, your goals and objectives are essentially two things. One, to get all that required training done, to keep kids safe, SUIDS training, all of those that are required because they're important. That's why they're required. To get all of that required paperwork in, all of those things, and then to get them familiar with your culture of your program. When you focus and you really put emphasis on culture, other aspects tend to fall into place because it does make how you talk to children. It does impact how you talk to each other. It impacts how you manage a complaint. It impacts how you take care of the space. Your culture should be the focus of those first 30 days.
I love that. Okay, so the two objectives, paperwork,
all required training,
and culture. Okay, that's the first 30 days. Got it.
Yeah. And so the next 30 days should be all about their growth, right? So you're going to check in, see what their goals are. I do short-term goal setting. Where are they feeling super strong? Where are they feeling like they need support? My guess is now they're kind of getting and doing more things by themselves. So they're probably struggling with transitions. So to give them some additional skills in how to work through transitions, right? In those first 30 days, you were like, don't lose children, count heads. That's what we're going to focus on for transitions. Now they're 30 days in and we're doing that 30 to 60 days. So now what I want you to focus on is how to make that easier for yourself so you're not frustrated. Let's develop these skills.
Well,
right?
And I think having more fun with it too, right? Because as you learn things become easier. So they know where they're supposed to stand in the line. They know how to do the head counts. And so now maybe we can add some songs. Now maybe we can add some silly things to it because their focus isn't so heavily on that safety portion.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay.
So those first 90 days, like keep kids safe, do all those things, and add into it that second set of 90 days really is all about things that are less immediate, but still have to be addressed, that are still important, but they're not urgent, right?
I love that.
So maybe like additional processes on cleanings and routines, that could be a good thing to introduce. Like they've been introduced to cleaning and what the expectations are, but now really telling them like the why or the how. Doing transitions, why it's important to do head counts, and the how of making it more enjoyable, more fun, less stressful.
I love that.
In there. And then we can move into that last 30 days. And again, we're talking about what are the objectives, right? So the second 30 days, the objectives were about growth. This last 30 days, the objective should be focusing on the nuances of your program and letting them be fully independent in their role. So this would be like teaching and introducing things that are important to your program, but definitely not urgent. Like for me, this is where I would start talking about some of the non-negotiables that I had, which, for example, if there was a piece of paper or a book or something out of place that was like laying on the ground, do not walk by that. I will be so frustrated if you walk by that. Pick up the piece of paper, put it in the garbage or put it in recycling, right? But I wasn't going to train on that on day 2 of them working with me. There were other more important things. And it is an expectation. So I'm going to address it at some point.
I
Right.
love that. I absolutely love that.
And, you can do it differently in some sort, but when, you and I work with clients, we really do tell them to like write down those goals and objectives for each 30 days, then write down the trainings that fit under those objectives and break it down by week. So really just going back and making sure that that all fits is really important, and how to get people actually engaged and living up to your expectations.
That's so fantastic. That's so fantastic. So then how do we help staff that have been with us longer to retain the training and keep up your expectations, right? Because we know slipping into bad habits, it's easy to do.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the best ways to do that is to take all of the trainings that you do in your onboarding and break them down to hit on them annually. So whether it's policies or values or whatever, you can be refreshing people on these topics throughout the year, because they always, learning something and hearing something once doesn't help you retain it.
Absolutely.
You have to repeat it over and over and over again.
Yes. And I think this is the core of that. Everybody's saying, put it in onboarding. Yes, put it in onboarding, and don't forget about it. And this is why I loved our staff meetings that we had and how we had them set up, because, I was always able to address one licensing rule, one area of child development, and then something specific to our program that I would talk about throughout onboarding too, right? So it's just a really good way to keep everyone on the same page, and having it like laid out annually was really beneficial. Because I knew I would hit on all of those topics throughout the year. But then also knowing that, like, if I saw somebody or a large group of people not following policy or falling back into old habits as a group, we already had those policies written out, and I could just address them at the next staff meeting.
I love that.
Which was so nice.
I love that. Well, and I think everyone needs refreshers sometimes, right? Like, I think about hand washing. We wash our hands so often, and there's a specific way licensing wants you to do it.
Yeah.
And I can almost guarantee not everybody does it all the time, right? And so if we just address it at a staff meeting, like, hey, today we're going to talk about how licensing wants us to do hand washing, and we're going to really focus on it the next month. It becomes a habit time and time again. And so just throwing it in, and it doesn't have to be this like heavy, like scolding. It doesn't have to be, I think sometimes people, when they're training, it takes on this tone, and it like disciplinary tone almost. And this is being proactive. This is getting in front of it. So you're not having to discipline. It's almost like that light bulb moment that we love to see in the children.
Yeah.
But the light bulb moment for your staff.
And I love what you just said about that, about like being proactive. And that's how we had every meeting set up, were those 3 areas. So staff also expected it. They knew that that's what we're going to address. So it wasn't like super personal or nobody felt attacked. They already knew that those things were coming up, regardless of if there were challenges or not. And so they also had this mindset of like, oh yeah, I have not been addressing that as often, so let's talk about it. And usually things like hand washing, I would bring up every fall, because flu season is gross, and we work with children that are gross and rub their faces and noses and then touch everything all the time, right? So really thinking about it ahead of time to just put it in the forefront of people's minds.
Well, and I think, how many times have staff members come up to you and thanked you? I know for me, it's countless times. People come up and thanked me for how we did our training. And so to know that staff are really craving information to do their jobs well.
Yeah.
That's what people want.
Yeah.
And so let's talk now about what happens when things get busy and you fall out of routine, right? So much like everything in life, things can get off track. Like last week was a holiday, and I'm doing this social media kit where I'm making all these videos. And because it was a holiday last week, I didn't stick to it. It fell off because I wanted to be on vacation with my family. So things like holidays, emergencies, staffing shortages can derail everything that you've so proactively worked towards,
Mhm.
right? And I will tell you, staff meetings and staff one-on-ones are the things that usually get pushed back or
100%.
dropped completely. And we get asked all the time, how do you get back on track? Or how do you start something new? Maybe if staff meetings weren't required before and you want to start it, how do you start something new?
I love it. I really, really love that you brought this up because I think, especially as leaders and directors, one, we're terrified of people quitting.
Absolutely.
But we get in our heads about letting things slide for a while. But we have to get over our egos. Like that's such an egotistical thing to be like, oh God, I made it, I let it slide. And now if I address it, I have to one, admit that I made it, let it slide, which makes me feel like I'm bad at my job. And two, people are going to be mad because I let it slide for a while and now I'm pushing them to get back on track. And we have to get over it. Like we just have to get over it and face it and say, yeah, honestly, I did drop the ball as a leader for a while. I allowed this to slide. There may have been reasons. There maybe I just spaced out, whatever it might be. But I do expect the best from all of us. So let's talk about this expectation again and get back on track. And how do you do that? You just do. You just have to. You just start. You state the expectation. You hold people accountable for it. Moving forward from that moment you recommunicated it, and just go. Like you just have to take that step.
I feel like it's kind of like a diet.
Yeah.
Like we've all been on a diet at some point.
Yeah.
And then you fall off. And at some point you have to recommit to yourself that you want to make the change and you want things to happen for yourself. So you make a commitment. And when you get off track in a leadership role, it's very, very similar. And instead of getting down on yourself, instead of, like you said earlier, like, I'm terrible at my job, I shouldn't have done this, da da da. Just make a commitment to the future, to doing better, to moving forward.
I love that. And, circling back to the beginning, like, yes, it is important to add things on your onboarding to introduce these topics early in someone's career with you and their role with you. But the bigger picture is reflecting on that how long your onboarding is, and more importantly, how you retrain and readdress those things throughout the year, because human beings are human beings.
So, all right, everyone. Well, we hoped you were able to get a lot out of today's episode and encourage you to subscribe, leave a review, and check out our show notes to see how we can support you. See you next time.
Bye.